special guest coming on. Is that correct?
We do, and let's get right to him. As we are pleased to be joined by the Hall of Famer, Jim Boeheim. Coach, great to hear from you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I was going to text you back yesterday, and I typed the message out, but I didn't hit send. You know, you do that when you get old. You forget that stuff.
Well, we're glad to have you. We're glad you're able to join us.
What's everybody complaining to Paulie about today?
Yeah, Paulie, what's the complaint du jour?
Second half adjustments, and J.J. Starling isn't as good as everybody thought he was. That seems to be the complaint du jour.
Well, let me go with JJ first. JJ is a really good player. His shooting has fallen off. I mean, he's getting to his shots. He just hasn't shot as well as he needs to. I think he's a first-team all-conference player when he shoots if he can improve his shooting. I think that's really the key. I think he was shooting the ball a little bit better early in the year, but he gets to the basket, he makes plays. I think his goal is let's get my shooting better. If I can get my shooting up to a reasonable level, I'm an all-conference player. That's what I think he is, without any question. And part of the late game situation is he hasn't been able to finish as he did early in the year. He finished some games. So I think that's been an issue. I just think generally overall, if you look at this team, they really could have or should have won their last 5 games. They've played well enough to win the last 5 games. Unfortunately, they didn't finish a couple that they could have won easily. But with everything that's happened this year, people discount that JJ missed a bunch of games and Donnie's been out really almost the whole conference season. They've come together now at the end and are playing good basketball. And it's unfortunate that they couldn't come together sooner. But their basketball right now, and particularly their offensive game, has been really good.
Yeah, and what does that tell you, Coach, about, and Paulie and I were talking about this at the beginning of the show, about the fact that there are plenty of examples out there of guys who quit on their coach or teams that wave the white flag. This team clearly has not. And I know they didn't win as many games as everybody wanted them to, but what does that tell you, the way that they've looked and played the last, 5 to 7 games?
Well, they finished better than any of those teams in the league, really. I mean, they finished extremely well, and it would have been easy to not do that. They fought hard. They played hard all year, I think, and they've had issues. Their defense hasn't been able to come together, which is one of the problems when you put a new team together with guys that have never seen each other before. Defense takes a long time. I think that's why Tony Bennett is out of coaching. He could not put his defense together the way he wanted to under today's conditions. And it takes longer. Unfortunately for this team, the key injury to Donnie and JJ hurt, but it's a group that when you're in the portal, you're really looking at what somebody has done at a different level. And the question is, can they do that at this level? And I think the answer is it's not that easy to do. I think Eddie's had a good year. He's had almost a little better year than he had at Colorado last year. That's a high level. The other guys are coming up to a higher level of basketball. And if you look around the league, you look around the country, there's a lot of guys, more than 50% of the portal guys that transferred, they're not playing at the level that you would have hoped to, because that jump is too big. And if you really look at the way they're playing now, especially, I think all these guys would be good players in another year. Unfortunately, they don't have another year. I think it's taken a little too long to adjust to the level that they're asked to play at in the ACC or in high Division I basketball. But they've fought through it. They worked hard. I watch them practice. They work hard every day in practice. They're trying to do what they're told. There's been a lot of talk about, well, they don't listen. Well, I think they listen. I think they just haven't been able to execute. I think that's been the main thing, particularly on the defensive end. They just have not been able to execute. Part of that is not having a rim protector. Part of it is just the individual defensive play has not been good enough. Remember, these transfer guys were more known for their offense than their defense.
Good question in our chat section that we want to get your thoughts on. I'm sure you heard Rick Pitino's comments about high school players. He essentially said, "I'm not recruiting high school players right now. I'm making my living in the portal." What do you make of those comments?
First of all, you have to take everything that Rick says with a little bit of a grain of salt. He has 3 high school guys signed already. So is he not taking those guys now? Of course he is.
Right.
But he is looking to get 2 or 3 transfer portal guys. You don't replace the guys he has at the top level, the players he has, with freshmen. That's not going to happen. You can't do that anymore. You can still have freshmen, but he'll get at least 3 or 4 transfer portal guys. And I just think that's the way it is. I think every year, ideally, you return 3 or 4 guys. You might have a freshman or 2, and then you have 2 or 3 transfer portal guys. That's pretty much kind of blueprint that you see around the country from just about every team. I mean, Duke has outstanding freshmen, but they have 2 or 3 transfer portal guys that are really, really good players and are making a big difference with their team. And if you look at all the top teams, Auburn, Tennessee's leading scorer is a transfer portal guy. I mean, you go right down the list. Every team in the country, their top guys, if you look at the top 20 players, some of their top guys are transfer portal guys. So you have to have a combination of transfer portal, maybe a couple freshmen, and then 2 or 3 returners to be a good team.
Coach, how important is retention on a team? And like Syracuse going into next year, if they can retain people, they'll have a senior at the 2, a senior at 3, and maybe a sophomore at the 4. How important is it to retain players?
That's important, very important. I mean, in a perfect world, you're going to retain J.J. Starling and Donnie. You're going to retain those 2 guys for sure. I like Peter. I think Peter can be a really good player at this level. I think those guys need to be retained. I think you have to work really hard to make sure those guys are there, and Elijah Moore or whoever else falls into that category. Chris Bell is one of the better shooters in the country. I mean, you keep 3 or 4 of those guys, and you have an outstanding group of freshmen that I think can contribute. They're probably not ready to be stars, but that's okay if they can contribute. And I think they could. I think Carmelo's son, I think Sadiq White, I think there's 2 or 3 of the freshmen that can contribute. I hear good things about the kid from Australia. So I think that those guys can contribute, but you obviously have to get a center in the portal and another guard, another good player in the backcourt, I think would be helpful. If you can retain those guys with those freshmen, I think the team would be in a really, really good position next year. You never know you don't know. When Carmelo came in as a freshman and Jerry came in as a freshman, we were not picked in the top 25 preseason. So you didn't know until you get guys there and see how they fit together. I think Adrian's done a good job. I think it's been a tough year. Things haven't gone the way he would like. but I think he understands what needs to be done to take a step up next year. I think they'll do that. Period.
And Coach, one way to do that, and something that we've heard Adrian talk about it a lot, and others associated with the program, the addition of a GM and Alex Klein, and we're seeing this around the country and certainly around the conference. Teams bringing on GMs to help with the transfer portal stuff. Can you speak to how much of a difference you think that makes to have a person like that, on the staff, working year round on the portal and identifying guys and identifying talent?
All right, let me explain that. Florida State football had a GM 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
They went undefeated, right?
Yes.
They had a GM last year, too. How many games did they win?
Did not go well.
Yeah, I mean, a GM it's helpful.
Sure.
It's helpful, but it's not because you have a GM, you're going to be good. No, I mean, it's helpful. I think he knows what he's doing. I like him. He is working hard to find guys. Guys are there's transfer portal decisions made already before the transfer portal even opens. Guys know where they're going right now today,
right,
before it even opens, and that's just the way it is. There's agents. Everybody has an agent. They're calling you. If you're the GM, I'll give you an example. I'm calling you. I'm the agent for X player. My guy's available. It's $800,000. What do you say?
Yeah.
And you go, well, that's a lot. I mean, there's not even an offer out there for 800. He's just saying that. Or you say, well, we've got 400. He says, well, that's not enough. So that's going on every day, and will go on every day until the transfer portal closes. It's not pretty. It's not anything anybody wants, but it is reality. It's unfortunate the game off the court is awful, and the game on the court is good. We've got a great tournament coming up. We have really good teams. We have 2 or 3, I think, great teams almost. And then we have a lot of really, really good teams that can beat the great teams, because the great teams they're not great. The very good teams are very good, but they're not unbeatable. So it'll be a great tournament, and it's unfortunate that the off the court is the way it is, and probably won't get fixed for it might be years before it gets fixed. I don't know if it ever will. You can't have free agency. Imagine if the NBA every year was free agency.
Right.
Every year.
Yeah.
The NBA is going to be free. No, the NBA people are too smart for that. They understand that. There's a salary cap. There's contracts. There's a union. There's everything. And that's once you monetize college sports the way it's monetized, you have to have all those things that the NBA and the NFL have. And, they don't want to get there, but if they don't get there, it'll be chaos. This lawsuit, if it gets settled, that only settles a little bit. There's still going to be lawsuits from people that don't get enough money or don't get money, and it's going to be messy for quite a while. You have to make the best of it. You have to get in there and try to find the best player you can find. And I know the guy that got the most money that I know of averaged 6 points a game this year at Kansas State. So there's no guarantees out there. And
Coach,
you have to be smart. You have to find the best possible guy you can find. I thought they did a great job last year looking at the guys they got. They all had great years where they were and looked like they would be able to translate. And they just haven't quite been able to.
Coach, when you mentioned the tournament, do you think that the tournament is still going to play out the way it used to with the transfer portal? Will there be Cinderellas anymore with the transfer portal? Will people losing their seniors? Those teams get good because they get old, but now they're losing their seniors to bigger programs.
Well, Drake hasn't. Some other schools haven't. There'll still be, the Ivy League still is very capable of upsetting somebody. I think the Ivy League winner particularly Yale was very good this year. I think they could upset somebody. I think there'll still be upsets. Just remember that when those schools lose a player, they get a player from somebody just below them. So they use the transfer portal too. So, yeah, I mean, there's good players everywhere right now. There's teams that have potential everywhere. But what you do have, Paulie, the Mississippi States are getting in the tournament, and they can beat an Alabama. They could beat a Tennessee. That didn't happen before. So that depth in conferences now, you can have, I mean, Kansas is going to be a 6th, 7th, 8th seed in the NCAA tournament this year. They're still pretty good. I mean, our league is different. We have 3 really good teams. I wouldn't be shocked to see 2 ACC teams go to the Sweet 16 and 1 go to the Final Four. I wouldn't even be surprised that 3 of our teams could go to the Sweet 16. I think Louisville, Clemson, and obviously Duke could be in the Sweet 16. We could have 3 teams in the Sweet 16, more than the SEC, who will have 10 or 11 or 12 teams in the tournament.
Yeah.
That could happen.
Yeah.
Clemson's really good. I like their team. Our league is not. Everybody else in our league has got to get better for the future.
One quick question on the ACC tournament itself. If I'm giving you Duke or the field, is it a no-brainer that you're taking Duke, or do you think that either Clemson or Louisville or maybe somebody else like Carolina can knock them off?
Well, Carolina couldn't beat them at home, so I don't think they're going to beat them. I mean, I don't think I like Louisville. I think that the coach there, I voted for him for Coach of the Year, even though really John Schreier should probably get it. He went 19-1. I mean, they really both should be Coach of the Year. And Bradburn, I mean, it's unusual, but I would say we almost have 3 guys that qualify for Coach of the Year. It's hard to pick one of them. But it's pretty easy to pick Player of the Year. We know that. But I just think that it would be hard to beat Duke in this tournament. I would be surprised unless somebody got hurt. I mean, I just don't see it. I just think they hung in there against North Carolina in the first half when Cooper Flagg was out. Had foul trouble. I mean, he's a difference maker like we haven't seen, I don't think, in a long time. I mean, it's kind of like Grant Hill was at Duke. A guy that does everything: offense, defense, rebound, block shots. But no, I don't see Duke losing it. I mean, Clemson beat them. They could beat them. Clemson could beat them. I think they'd be the team. And the big guy's pretty good. He's difficult to play against. If he doesn't get in foul trouble, I think they could beat Duke.
All right. Well, it all gets started tomorrow in Charlotte. 7 o'clock tip for the Orange against Florida State. Coach, we always love having you on. Thanks so much for the time.
One last thing, is I was very happy the lacrosse team won yesterday. It was a great game. But they would have been firing Gary Gate today if it wasn't, I'm sure. There have been calls. We don't decide who coaches at Syracuse by phone calls. You know that, right? They wanted me fired 25 years, 30 years ago. I mean, at least, when we went to the NIT one year. So, they didn't do that, and it turned out all right.
It did turn out all right. Better than all right. Coach, thanks again for the time. Be well, and we look forward to chatting with you.